Alright, this is a short video presentation about emotional disturbance and autism. Emotional disturbance is the high incidence disability. It's a condition that exhibits one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time. An inability to learn that can't be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors. An inability to build or maintain interpersonal relationships between peers and teachers. Inappropriate behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. General pervasive mood, like unhappiness or depression, and a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. An example of that is schizophrenia. They can include the following: anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, OCD. Those are just a few that can be characterized under emotional disturbance. Some of the characteristics include, but are not limited to, hyperactivity, which is like a short attention span or impulsiveness, aggression or self-interest behavior like acting out and fighting, withdrawal, immaturity, and learning difficulties. There are those with more serious emotional disturbances that may exhibit more symptoms, and that includes distorted thinking and excessive anxiety. These characteristics, they're going to show up in pretty much everybody at one point or another, but it's not considered emotional disturbance unless these are exhibited over time. There's a few classroom challenges as well. Students should be maintained in the classroom whenever possible and taught basic academic skills like reading and writing, alongside interpersonal relationships. Teachers need to make instructions very clear and orderly and give plenty of time for the task to be completed before moving on. It's important that we establish clear ground rules and have transitions as well with quiet periods in between activities. Some students may require a more systematic and direct teaching method to social skills development. Many students who have emotional disturbances also have a coexisting learning disability of some type. The more difficulty they have with a classroom task, the more likely that maladaptive behavior will result. A few support organizations, it's mainly with psychiatrists and psychologists and other mental health professionals that work in either the public or private sector or even on the state level. There's also a few websites. One is Mental Health America. The other is NAMI, which stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there's a few more as well. And of course, the main support is the family. Some useful assistive technology is that some students may find it useful to use a word processing software to help with their writing. That allows them to edit and revise as they go, and it helps them also to strengthen their spelling skills and writing cohesion. As for medical achievements, not a lot has really been found outside of just the mental health from professionals. That's the main thing that's happening right now, is just getting that professional help. So autism is the low incidence disorder, and it is a developmental disability characterized by impairments in communication, learning, and reciprocal social interactions. Usually can be noticed in infancy or early childhood, and it adversely affects educational performance. It's about 5 times more likely in boys than girls and affects about 1 in 68 children. It's also reported to occur in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups, so that's not a factor. And it's referred to as a spectrum disorder because there's a great range of strengths, abilities, areas of need, and severity. And so there's a lot of different ways that autism can happen in a person. A few of the characteristics include, but also are not limited to, lack of appropriate gaze, lack of sharing enjoyment or interest, lack of alternating to and fro vocalizations with parents, and lack of response to name, the delayed onset of babbling past 9 months of age, decreased or absent use of pre-speech gestures like waving and pointing, not speaking single words by 16 months, repetitive movements or posturing of body, arms, and hands, etc., and loss of language or social skills at any age. As well as with emotional disturbance, there's a few considerations that we need to have in our classroom. we need to get to know the students on a personal level. That will help us be able to understand them as best we really can and be able to spend time with them. It's important that we provide instruction for specific skills and areas, so not just the typical reading, writing, math, but also communication, relationships, things like that. And we need to be able to provide individualized support and service whenever needed, like being with a social worker or one-on-one time with somebody. And it's important that we create structured environments and have a schedule. And if we ever do have to change the schedule, don't make it too abrupt. It's important that we allow for adapting to the schedule. It's important that we're consistent, using simple, concrete language, and also using various means of presentation. So visual, physical guidance, modeling, there's a lot of different things that we can do. It's important that we avoid overstimulation, because if there's too much going on, a lot of colors around, a lot of things on the walls, that can really take the focus away of what the student is learning. And then I also read that typically children with autism will have talents, just like all of us. Some of those talents will include like really good at drawing, computer programs, things like that. And so it's really important that we put emphasis on developing those talents. There's a few support organizations. First and foremost is the family, as well as teachers and social workers, because they get to spend first and foremost time with these students. Some other organizations include the Autism Society of America, the Autism Information Center at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Those provide resources and information for parents, teachers, and others about the disorder. And then another one is called Autism Speaks. The goal of that organization is to provide funding for biomedical research to investigate causes, prevention, treatment, and cures for autism, and also to raise public awareness. There's a lot of useful assistive technology. A lot of it is the visual representation systems, including photographs, drawings, written words. There's a program called Boardmaker, and it offers a 3,000 picture communication symbol library. And so that's a really good way to help these students and children communicate. Some of the low technology includes dry erase boards, clipboards, photo albums, colored tape. These are called low technology because they don't require electronics or batteries. There's the mid technology, which is more simple electronic devices. And those include tape recorders, overhead projectors, calculators, smaller things like that. And then there's the more complex electronic devices. That's the high technology. And that includes video cameras, computers, and other adaptive hardware. So there's a lot of medical achievements and research that have gone into autism. There's lots of medical terms that I don't really understand too much, so I'm just going to kind of sum it up the best I can. The cause is very complex. It's diagnosed on a basis of a large number of criteria. Some of those criteria that have been researched and those causes that have been researched include, but are not limited to, genetics, abnormal central nervous system functioning, neurotransmitters like serotonin, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, because there's abnormal levels of those, and also autoimmunity. The general view is that autism is caused by a pathophysiologic arising from the interaction of an early environmental insult and a genetic predisposition.